The world of pro wrestling has a term called kayfabe. Kayfabe refers to the art of wrestlers presenting their characters, fights, and storylines to be true in the real world. So, for example, if Stone Cold Steve Austin and Brian Pillman are in a feud on TV, the pair would not be seen together enjoying a meal at a restaurant.
It's gonna be there because if you're gonna have a little party with some crippled freak, you can bet I'll be there, and that's the bottom line.
Some wrestlers have gone through extreme lengths for kayfabe, going as far as attacking each other in public, or the classic case of Austin and Pillman, in which viewers were shown scenes of Austin breaking into Pillman's house and Pillman pulling a gun on him. Although what we know about pro wrestling today is very different from its roots, and the argument against its entertainment value is that it's quote-unquote fake, there are elements of wrestling that cannot be faked, both in the ring and, my focus, from a story perspective. Wrestlers can often draw parallels between their real lives and characters. A more modern example of this would be the AEW star Jon Moxley, who struggled with addiction and is recently out of rehab. Moxley uses this as a motivation for his character, and from a story perspective, the stakes of him overcoming the odds of becoming world champion are just as real as any man overcoming his addiction attempting to get his life back.
I'm thirsty. You thought I was dangerous before. Shit. These days, all I drink is blood!
The reason wrestling has been able to captivate so many fans for so many years is the way it uses reality that it exists in to fuel its stories, which brings a level of authenticity to the programming. Pro wrestling has become a casual fascination of mine, as when a story within that reality is told well, it can be one of the most engaging stories out there, as these athletes devote themselves to kayfabe, presenting their characters and storylines as real. As I've grown up, I've gained a new appreciation for media that challenges reality in interesting and creative ways, because this idea of kayfabe can be attributed to all kinds of media besides wrestling. Take the pranks from Jackass series or much of Sacha Baron Cohen's work, for example. From the character acting, heavy makeup and costumes, there's something about creating a fake scenario that has always enticed me. Besides the entertainment value, I appreciate the behind-the-scenes work that must go into some of these. I appreciate that, for a brief moment, these pranks create a false reality and immerse the actors in the prank as well as the victim within it. People like Eric Andre do this as well, as Eric engages in extreme pranks in public for his shows and his films, or on his talk show, in which he tortures celebrities in a fever dream set for an hour, which is cut down to 2 or 3 minutes, transporting them from the real world momentarily to a world of his own disturbing creation. All of these types of media create what I can only really describe as a false reality, in which fiction and reality play hand in hand to create something meaningful or entertaining. But what if this false reality didn't end there? What if this notion of a crew and a bunch of creative geniuses were able to take their own philosophies, ideas, and stories and weave them in and out of reality? Today, I wanted to take a look at a few who I feel are notable and significant creators who play with reality to varying degrees and to various ends. By doing this, hopefully it's possible to understand their artistic intent. This is the art of breaking reality.
It's one thing for Brian to track 1 of me, but let's see how he does with 9 of me.
Perhaps the king of playing with reality at the moment is Nathan Fielder. Fielder got his start on Canadian skit comedy show This Hour Has 22 Minutes with his segment Nathan on Your Side, where his entertaining and wild ideas paired with his deadpan delivery didn't quite allow for viewers to really get a full vibe of what he was going for. You can see roots of the type of thing he wanted to do in these early skits. However, because of the format of the show, only allowing for a couple of minutes per skit, didn't allow him to fully flesh out his ideas, which is something he's become known extensively for now. It wasn't until he got his own show, Nathan For You, which aired in 2013, that his ideas could really take form. There are plenty of great essays and analysis on Nathan For You, so I won't go too in depth here, but if you haven't seen the show, the premise is that Nathan acts as a business consultant for real businesses, offering strange, complicated, and sometimes flat out bad business advice. The show, on its surface, seems like your typical prank show, and to a degree it is. It's entertaining to see these people go along with whatever Fielder's demented but genius brain has cooked up for them. In many ways, this is how Fielder does what I call breaking reality, in the sense that he uses the budget for the show to create situations that would not normally exist in one's everyday life. For example, in one episode, Fielder convinces a store to sell their televisions for $1 so that Best Buy would price match. Then, he will orchestrate a bunch of people to go to Best Buy and buy televisions for $1, buying them out of stock so people will have to go to this failing electronics store to buy TVs. However, while the $1 sale is on, Fielder cannot risk anybody buying the televisions for $1, so he enacts a strict tuxedo-only dress code, and when a customer actually rents one, he makes accessing the televisions very challenging.
Oh.
Perhaps one of the most notable ways Nathan was able to blend reality into his TV show was in the Dumb Starbucks episode, in which Nathan uses parody law and hires a team to create an establishment that looks and acts exactly like Starbucks, called Dumb Starbucks, which made headlines everywhere when it was created. This is a prime example of how Fielder uses reality to his benefit, as news stories and articles give validity to his projects. And this is a common theme throughout the show, the idea that Fielder is so acutely aware of how the world works around him that he can manipulate it to whatever way he wants. In the context of the show, usually this means money for his quote-unquote victims, but in a real-life context, hilarious and entertaining television. This is not the first time one of his stories makes news headlines. In one of the earliest episodes, he orchestrates a fake viral video of a pig saving a goat, which became viral in the real world. Or when he used his real-life appearance on Jimmy Kimmel to tell a bizarre and specific but fake personal story, and then orchestrates his real life so that the story actually happens to him, creating a fake reality.
But I recently had a weird run-in with the law.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. I don't want to go on a tangent or anything.
No.
Yeah, I was going to a wedding, like out-of-town wedding.
Okay.
You've been to weddings before.
I was at
right?
one once, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I arrive, I get off the plane, I get my luggage, I get my rental car, I go to the hotel, and when I open my suitcase, my jaw literally drops because none of my clothes are inside, and my suit for the wedding was in my bag, and I'm literally in shorts and a t-shirt. But we're trying to figure out the logistics of like getting mine back, or like doing the switch, you know? So I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much. And I put on the suit, but the only thing is it's like way too big for me.
Okay.
Oh yeah, that is.
In the suit, there's like a small Ziploc baggie with like a powdery substance in it. Driving down this rural road, and I see the sirens, and a cop pulls me over. Okay, you're good. What did he say was in the baggie? And he said, it's his mother's ashes.
However, there is much more to the show than this. Nathan uses this format of filming reality to exploit and explain human nature, and how different dynamics can reveal how people act in reality. Fielder shows how social norms guide humans in the decisions they make, perhaps more so than anything else. In fact, part of the reason the show can exist at all is because of this premise. It seems that once Nathan pitches his bizarre plan, business owners are more likely to just go along with it rather than cause conflict. Of course, this isn't always the case. Sometimes the owners are excited, or they bail on the project, but the sense of hesitation you get as a viewer is a part of that cringe-worthy element of reality that Nathan's work captures so well. Nathan knows human nature, and knows how to exploit that willingness to give others good faith in order to create some entertaining television. As much as Nathan knows how humans act in general, he also knows how to instantly read a person, how they act and how they will act, often trying to push their buttons, or using a one-off comment they say as a plot point in the show. An example of what I mean here is in the episode when Nathan convinces a garage to get a polygraph test when giving estimates to prove they're being honest with the cost of repairs. He puts a gag in the show in which he presumably gets the man running the polygraph to ask if he's ever masturbated to pornography, to which Nathan says no, but the machine says he's lying. He confronts the man about this, stating he would never do that, and notices the man is protective and slightly aggressive about the validity and accuracy of his machine. So later in the episode, when the polygraph is rigged up at the shop, he uses this as fuel.
Have you ever pleasured yourself while watching pornography on the internet?
No.
Fail.
Do you need to reboot the computer or something?
There's nothing to reboot. It's rolling.
Because I noticed your computer is a Dell, so I don't know.
Computer's a Toshiba.
This is one example, but every episode of Nathan For You is full of things like this. This may seem like he's just tormenting the people on his show or simply for laughs and entertainment. However, I think Nathan is breaking reality, or making situations appear and people act as they would not normally appear or act in real life, is to illustrate the reality of human nature. I mean, the final episode of Nathan For You is not an episode at all, but a full documentary in which Nathan attempts to reconnect an eccentric Bill Gates impersonator with an old love while delving into Nathan's own inability to connect with people all at the same time. Nathan's exposing truths about how humans act in these kinds of situations, but perhaps more poignant, the reality of Nathan's life as a person who, due to his circumstances in life, has trouble connecting with people in reality the way it is. This is a common theme in Nathan For You, but perhaps his ideas explore with more clarity and nuance in Nathan's newest project, The Rehearsal. The premise of The Rehearsal is that Nathan finds people who, for some reason or another, agree to participate or rehearse a pivotal moment or conversation in life, going to extreme ends to predict every possible outcome and be prepared for that outcome. As always with Nathan's work, This presents some genuinely hilarious and genius moments, such as the reveal in the first episode that when Nathan meets the first person who's agreed to do a rehearsal, that he had actually got his team to go to this man's house posing as a company fixing a gas leak to map out this man's entire house digitally, and then recreated his house as a set and had an actor play the part of this man, rehearsing every possible way this interaction could have went. However, as the show goes on, this work delves even deeper into creating a fake reality in which Nathan's actually providing others with the opportunity to live within this rehearsed reality, as opposed to being a part of it for just a few minutes. The fake reality that's being created in the first episode is quite lighthearted, as a man prepares to tell a friend about a white lie he's been holding in for about 10 years, rehearsing how the moment will go, using actors to play his friend, and a true-to-life recreation of the bar in which the man and his friends have trivia at night. Rehearsals such as this continue throughout the season, but one rehearsal finds Nathan essentially role-playing fatherhood along with a woman in a house, hiring actors to play the part of a child. But as the series goes on, Nathan's pursuit for his immersiveness becomes more and more complicated, as he finds himself trying to balance fatherhood and his job. His job now entailing of starting a fake acting school, sending the students on a quest to become another person, and then himself role-playing one of the students who's attempting to role-play someone else. Yes, it becomes very convoluted, complicated, and I think, genius. In this work, more so than Nathan for You, it's clear. Nathan is not satisfied with his life. He wants to be someone else. He wants to feel other people's feelings. So in a sense, this show becomes a character study on himself. Underneath all the funny bits and convolutedness is a looming theme, an underlying theme of longing. Perhaps where the show becomes less about rehearsing reality and more about Nathan trying to find a real place inside this fake reality is when he does not feel immersed enough as a father, not being there enough for his fake son. So he gets an actor playing his son to die of an overdose and hires another younger actor to play his son again, redoing the rehearsal to fix the mistake he made as a father. And then, in this moment, right at the end of the episode, we get the actor playing the teenage son asking the crew of the show,
"Is that it?"
This moment acts to pull away the veneer of what Nathan's doing. In attempting to create a fake reality, Nathan's doing more than many creators will do to expose who they really are, which ironically brings the audience closer to understanding his psyche, while alienating those who are actually around him. Nathan uses the act of breaking reality to illuminate human behavior, but more importantly, to tell us truths about himself that he can't articulate in real life. All of this leads to a finale, which at first I found to be funny, but by the end, I was too disturbed to laugh. This is how Nathan Fielder undresses the human psyche, undresses his own psyche, and breaks reality.
No. I'm your dad.
Describing How To with John Wilson is complicated because, on one hand, it's very similar to Nathan For You, which isn't surprising considering it's produced by Fielder himself. However, on another hand, it's an entirely different in its approach and ideology. While Nathan attempts to create a fake reality, maybe even a reality that he likes more, John Wilson manages to capture reality exactly as it is, so much so that it even seems fake in moments, and uses his footage to more or less share his own ideas about the world or teach lessons. John Wilson is simultaneously behind the camera most of the time, but also acts as somewhat of a focus of the show, using narration to speak to the viewer, and somehow using the footage to weave together a narrative or story.
Much like in real estate, location is everything when you're making small talk. You could pose the same question in two different environments and receive wildly different answers. You could ask a question to a philosopher.
Do you think mankind is going to make a comeback?
I hope so. If we can survive the perils of climate change, inequality, and the fantastic weapons of destruction we've created for ourselves.
But that same question might get a much different answer at WrestleMania.
Do you think mankind is going to make a comeback?
No, not tonight. He fell off too many Hell in the Cells.
Oh, really?
The basic premise of the show is that of a how-to show, teaching the viewers how to do something, such as how to make small talk or how to throw out batteries. However, this is just a premise, and the show devolves into more of a documentary exploration of New York, as Wilson uses the how-to topic of each episode as a way to unify the various strange footage he takes. Often, what this results in is footage of something that Wilson contextualizes in different light with his narration, sometimes as a pun, or sometimes to a more emotional end. Honestly, the show is very hard to describe, and if you haven't seen it, that's part of what makes it so great. It's entirely unique, and paired with the fact that you have no idea as a viewer what the footage is going to appear next, it makes for a very engaging watch. So, if John Wilson is capturing reality exactly how it is, then how is he breaking reality? Well, he achieves this in a couple of ways. The first way is by choosing to focus on moments in reality that don't seem real in their bizarreness or presentation. Wilson has a fixation on filming everything and anything, and has an extensive record of everything he's done every day for years, as he reveals in the show. So, when you film every single thing you do, especially in New York, you come across a wide variety of strange things. By filming all of his encounters with everything all day, Wilson's able to capture the unreality that exists within reality. This creates a fake reality for the viewer to watch, as if every day in Wilson's life is full of strange people, vehicles, buildings, and moments. The next way that Wilson breaks reality is kind of the opposite of the first way, which is by filming monotonous, boring moments of nothingness around him, and as mentioned before, contextualizing them to fit the narrative or idea that he's trying to express in the episode. For example, Wilson may film somebody crying on the phone and use that while discussing how hard it is to deal with a breakup. Or he will film somebody trying to fit something into the trunk of a car and pair that with audio talking about how to fit into society. The way that these moments are presented to the audience manage to visually represent what he's saying, almost to the point where it seems choreographed or planned, but that's the beauty of the show.
When someone opens up to you, you might feel the need to reciprocate out of politeness. But this comes with a big risk, because an exchange of feelings may cause you to be swept up in a relationship that you're not prepared for. So it's important to know how to navigate the interaction back to calm waters.
There are only 2 seasons of How To with John Wilson, so it's hard to compare it to shows such as Nathan For You, which I've already had multiple seasons and completed their run on TV. However, I think what John Wilson's trying to do is to break reality by showing how it is, and in the process, create meaning or find beauty in that reality, and while doing so, expose himself in the same way Nathan Fielder does. Both of these men have dedicated themselves so much so in their craft that they've, to an extent, alienated themselves within the reality they live in. And so, by completely dedicating themselves to the camera like Wilson has, he can use that as a way to create comedy, as well as connect with people as the narrator of this comedy. Season 2 of the show captures this theme of the struggle of human connection more strongly than Season 1. Where in Season 1, most of the entertainment comes from the spectacle of what John's filming and how he uses this footage to comedic ends. Season 2 focuses more on John attempting to connect with others and making poignant statements about life. John uses this reality he lives in to expose truths about the world around him, but also about himself. Whether it's about his inability to connect with people fully because of the camera he always has, or the trouble he has with his partner because of his lifestyle, or how bad he is at making plans or organizing his life, Wilson is giving a simultaneously very bare bones and honest look at the reality of his life and his own faults. Season 2 finds Wilson opening up a bit more about his personality and his past, while still maintaining the crux of what makes up the show, the entertaining footage. So, while it's hard for someone like Fielder to escape the sinister nature of his work, as he acts like a puppet master, pulling the strings of his reality and the people in it, Wilson takes a different approach, whereby instead of trying to get people to act in a certain way, he lets life act around him, and it's up to him to pick up the pieces and put them together. Wilson's work is less about breaking reality, and more about deconstructing it to understand it and find meaning within it.
And I just started talking to some of the people on Learn.V, and I said, I can't see my life going anywhere. And he said, say the word and I'll come get you. And that was the most selfless thing that I'd ever heard anybody say. And since then, he has brought me in as, you know, he's been the father that I've always wanted. And
Finally, the last person I want to talk about who I think is extremely significant in the art of breaking reality is Matt Johnson. Matt Johnson does something very different than Fielder and Wilson, which is that he uses reality to help enhance or create compelling fiction. By looking at his body of work, this is something that Johnson's completely dedicated to. It seems that Johnson strives to really blur the line between reality and fiction in ways that Fielder and Wilson don't. Sometimes when watching Johnson's work, it can be unclear on who's in on the production and who's not. It's in that sense that perhaps of these three, Johnson is the one who's breaking reality at the core of what that really means, truly blending reality and fiction to create a narrative. Johnson cites one of his inspirations to be Kaveh Zahidi, specifically the show about the show, in which Zahidi attempts to create a show in which every episode of the show is about the making of the previous episode. Everyone's playing themselves, and if they won't, he hires actors to play them. The premise of the show is genius, and while I think it had a strong beginning, I personally found each episode to devolve into less about the show and more about Zahidi's personal life. I respect Zahedi's pursuit for pure authenticity, and he's made a lot of compelling yet questionably ethical work, but I think Johnson's roots can certainly be seen in this work. The main difference between someone like Zahedi and Johnson is that as a viewer, you feel like you begin to understand the type of person Zahedi is, even if you don't like him. Whereas for Johnson, his work seems to be less about authenticity and illustrating his own truths, but rather creating false truths, in which the viewer is not sure who Johnson really is and what about his work is real or not. To start at Johnson's breakout film, The Dirties is portrayed as a documentary about two kids in high school who want to make a movie. Before even discussing the plot, one of the ways that Johnson tries to blend reality and fiction is by always playing characters named after himself, along with others in the project. Matt and Owen want to make a film about killing the bullies in their school who relentlessly pick on them for being awkward outcasts. However, Matt becomes more and more fixated on actually killing them for the movie, as he begins to understand reality less and less with constant movie references, ultimately leading to tragedy. There are so many nuances at play in this film that may not be able to be picked up on at first. The film comes from a place of reality, as Johnson himself is a huge movie buff, and all of his works are full of film and pop culture references. And much like the ways that the character Matt can't differentiate between reality and fiction, this is one of Johnson's fixations as well. And as somebody who's worked with children around that age for about a decade, it was almost hauntingly accurate to see how Johnson and Williams portray these characters. The movie is a little bit predictable, the arc between the two friends is a bit played out, but despite those few minor gripes, this is a compelling and phenomenal breakout film in my opinion. Perhaps the best way that Johnson's able to break reality in this film is by actually being able to film in a real high school, using real students with some actors thrown in, with real reactions under the guise that a documentary is being filmed. Johnson knows that the best way to get genuine reactions from people, and to make his characters seem like they exist in the real world, is by placing them in the real world. So, in many intimate moments, such as when the character Matt is talking to his mother, it's difficult to know if she's been fed lines or if she's giving a genuine reaction to her son.
I don't seem crazy, do I?
You're not crazy, although you say wacky things. I don't know why you do that. I think you do it just for effect.
That's what Owen thinks too.
I'm just wondering why you're referring, but where did that come from?
I don't know.
Or do you think you're crazy?
No, I don't think I'm crazy. I don't know why I'm asking.
In the same way Wilson does, Johnson can then contextualize his footage to create a very impactful scene in the film. However, like Fielder, Johnson also uses the good faith and adherence to social norms to his advantage, such as getting permission to film within the high school. Johnson uses this to his advantage even more in the follow-up projects. Operation Avalanche is Johnson's next film, and much like The Dirties, is presented as a quote-unquote real documentary to its audience. The film follows some CIA agents, played by Matt Johnson and Owen Williams again, who infiltrate NASA as a documentary film crew, accidentally unearthing and then becoming involved in the conspiracy to fake the moon landing. In this film, Johnson and his team go through the great lengths to present the film as if it was legitimately filmed during the space race of the 60s, going as far as to film the movie with equipment used at that time and filming on location. Johnson was able to use the story of the characters in the film, film a documentary about NASA in real life, to gain access to shoot the film on location at NASA. Johnson also says that he was astounded to gain access to the building and realized that much of the interior has been unaltered since the 60s, giving the film the extra sense of authenticity. So in a much different way, Johnson's able to once again blend these realities by he and his crew simply dressing from the time period and simply asking NASA for permission to film. Something that Johnson's very passionate about, and something that a lot of his work has a huge reliance on, especially this film, is fair use laws. In interviews, Johnson implores filmmakers to use fair use to their advantage, and they'll be surprised at what they can get away with. Johnson is able to use the very real and prominent conspiracy theory that the moon landing is fake, and essentially make a fake documentary to back up those claims, even going as far as using old footage and interviews from Stanley Kubrick, who supposedly involved in the conspiracy, and splicing it to make it seem real in the context of their film. By grounding his work in reality and using real historical documents and footage to his advantage, Johnson's really able to sell and cement his premise. He's using real-life stakes and historical evidence and contextualizing it within a fake documentary. So, for very different reasons than The Dirt, when it comes to blending reality, creating comedy, using genuine reactions, and a hell of a lot of fair use and legal twisting and turning, I believe Johnson's magnum opus to be the television series Nirvana the Band, The Show. The name itself is a testament to Johnson's reliance on fair use, parody law, and attempting to break reality. The show started as a web series, but got picked up by Viceland in 2017. It focuses on Matt and Jay, two musicians who go by Nirvana the Band, and their plans and schemes to get a gig at the Rivoli in Toronto. I'd recommend watching the YMS video about Nirvana the band, the show, because I'll be making some of the same points here and using similar examples, and he does a good job at explaining the show. I believe in this show, Johnson really establishes his style and the extremely entertaining results of incorporating reality into his fictional world. Sometimes the show is using public antics such as jackass-style pranks, sometimes their schemes involve the similar sitcom-esque plans and interactions captured by Fielder, and sometimes these raw and real moments are captured on film that seem unreal, much like Wilson's work. And it is in these ways that I believe Johnson has mastered the art of breaking reality. Johnson is hesitant to pull the carpet out from under his work in interviews, rarely explaining what is real and what is fake. Part of the reason for this is because Johnson characters exist in the real world, and oftentimes, the real world they use to shape their episodes. This happens in almost every episode, and it's what sets Johnson's work apart from many others. For one example, in one episode, Johnson has a chance encounter with a woman outside a party who offers him some alcohol, and in character, he says he's never drank before. Johnson and his team then decide to completely change the episode, with the character Matt getting drunk and loving alcohol becoming a major plot point. The interaction between Johnson and the woman is real, but they use it to enhance the fake world they're creating within the show. Sometimes Johnson and McCarroll do things that are straight up illegal on camera, such as jumping on subway tracks, or one stunt that really got them in trouble where they break open a display case at a museum. But because they blend these realities so well, it's hard to know what's real and what's not, and also who's in on it. In a way, Johnson's making these fictional characters experience real-life stakes. Perhaps the most genius with these warpings of reality is when Johnson uses the real-life premiere of Operation Avalanche as a plot point for an episode in the TV show. The characters Matt and Jay in Nirvana the band, the show, have an idea to film a movie called Operation Avalanche and submit it into a film festival to gain notoriety, and use that to get a show at the Rivoli. So in real life, Johnson pulls a stunt where he gets the festival to play the fake movie first, then the real movie after. Then, throughout the promotions and interviews for the real Operation Avalanche, the real Matt Johnson dressed up in character and says things they can use for the show, being able to use real news clips and interviews to fit him into the context of the show. It takes true preparation and dedication to pull this off, and they do. It's very believable, and once you understand the whole story, it's absolutely hilarious. Johnson will go through extreme lengths to create a form of authenticity and genuine human interaction in the fake world of the show, which focuses on two sociopaths. These are just a couple examples in the show, but every episode is filled to the brim with convoluted and complicated methods of achieving engaging stories and interactions with people, changing the course of the episodes. Johnson pushes fair use laws to the brink in the series as well. Almost every opening is a parody of a popular film, and the show, like all of Johnson's work, is littered with references, licensed music, and logos galore. But even more than this, Johnson pushes it a step further. One episode takes place during the premiere of The Force Awakens, and they actually film parts of the episode in the theater, filming parts of the movie. In another episode, they parody the reality show Wahlburgers, and use footage from the show and use it to drive the narrative and style of the episode. Johnson's playing to all the strength in the show, and with the help of McCarroll, they're able to take all these seemingly illegal stunts, people's faces appearing on television, copyrighted material, and situate these characters in what seems to be to the viewer reality. And that's how Johnson succeeded at breaking reality.
Beneath the Rivoli and this map, we need a copy of it, and he's...
You don't have a phone?
Yeah. Okay, so just use your phone. So let's do this and get out of here.
Oh, right, use my phone. You can't.
I can't. Can I?
Breathe.
I would say just do it.
Okay, give me a countdown.
I don't know, 3, 2, 1, go.
Regardless of intent, motivation, or finished product, it's creators like Fielder, Wilson, and Johnson that have dedicated their lives and more or less their entire bodies of work to playing with reality and creating their own version of kayfabe within their material. In the cases of Fielder and Wilson, it seems that the pursuit has cost them some normal social interactions and sometimes their relationships with others. In the case of Johnson, his personality and projects become an enigma, as besides a casual interview here or there, he is more or less off the grid in an attempt to make all his work as believable as possible. Regardless of which of these works resonate with you the most, or if any of them do at all, it's a truly monumental feat for anyone to be able to bring what seems to be real into question for viewers, and in their own way, I believe that these creators have achieved that goal. I believe that Nathan Fielder, John Wilson, and Matt Johnson, each in their own ways, have mastered the art of breaking reality. And by breaking reality, we're able to understand more about human nature, and maybe in some cases, more about ourselves. Thanks for listening. Take it easy.
Turn that up. I love that grooving. What kind of music is that? Like a bossa nova beat?